Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm so excited. I have a very dear and old friend here with me today to talk to you about cryptocurrency. I wanted to have a speaker in this summit that was an expert on cryptocurrency and has a really good grasp of the founding of cryptocurrencies, how they work, and the vision of the future and what is going to be happening with cryptocurrencies. And I can't think of a better person than my friend Morpheus, aka Thomas Costanzo.
Hey, how's it going there, Clyde?
So Thomas, thank you very much for being with us. Morpheus, we know you lovingly by that name as well. You're well named after the character in The Matrix, Morpheus. So I met Morpheus in Arizona. I was on a national tour for my book, Common Sense Revisited, and also talking about the Restored Republic back in 2012. I believe it was 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. Pretty sure. And so I was speaking in Phoenix. There's a large crowd too. I mean, there must have been 70, 80 people in that room.
At the fire station.
Yeah, the fire station.
And the lights went on when you talked about the Republic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. I remember that now. I forgot about that. The lights weren't on. It was dark. And then I started talking about the Republic and the lights went on or something like that. Yeah. And everybody went, whoa, you know, I remember that now. You know, I think that's recorded. I think it's recorded. It actually was on YouTube.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got to meet you, and then we started talking. You introduced me to Podolsky, Robert Podolsky,
right?
Who is the son of Boris Podolsky, who was a world-renowned physicist who worked with Einstein. In fact, it's the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen effect.
EPR.
Yeah. So, you know, anyway, yeah. And Bob was his son and grew up in that environment. Very brilliant man, also a physicist. And he had started an organization to create Octologs, which was an organization basically of non-coercive groups working together to really eventually replace coercive government, which was really a fantastic thing. We did a lot of work on that. In fact, I'll just mention to people, if you have any interest in that, I did a whole website on it called flourishfairfield.org. And it's called flourishfairfield.org, where we have Foster Gamble, myself, and Bob Podolsky have videos there talking about this amazing alternative to coercive government, which I still believe in. I believe that that's possible. I believe that that's a direction eventually we're going to have to go, because any government ever in creation is always going to end up being a crime syndicate of power players. That's just the laws of nature. And that's what we have in this country now, and that we're trying to fix. It always becomes a crime syndicate. Now, our topic today is cryptocurrency, and how does that tie into a crime syndicate? Well, the crime syndicate, wouldn't you agree, Thomas, has always been the people who control the money.
Yeah, you as the gold makes the rules.
Exactly. And so, you know, the cabal is brilliant. The bankers, the international bankers are brilliant. They don't need to create an army themselves. They can just control the monetary supply for countries, and then they end up owning the government and everything within it.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of carrots. They can create the carrots, and then people do what they want them to do.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason we're having this talk today is to talk about cryptocurrency and how that can make a big difference, how that could be a game changer in terms of this whole monetary power that the cabal you've been using for centuries and centuries to control us. And so Um, let's talk, Thomas, a little bit about how you got into cryptocurrencies, when you got into it, and let's go from there.
Well, one thing I'd like to share with you first off is I don't think that what these they're not currencies. They're assets or commodities. I wrote an article. I never really published it, but it was about why Bitcoin can never be a currency, and the reason why it can't be a currency, at least under the current model that we live in, is because governments control currencies. That's they're the only ones that can create them, and typically we use dollars now or whatever, yen or euros or what have you, but these are instruments. A dollar is a note. They're not backed by gold anymore, which we got off the gold standard. I forget what year, but they they are back. They are created by governments to facilitate trade
Right.
and notes. So a note is, it's like a form of a debt. It is a debt. I mean, but a note is a debt. If you can have a bank note, is like your mortgage note is a debt instrument that is when these instruments are instruments created by the government. So I think it's a misnomer to actually call them cryptocurrencies. I think that I used to call them a crypto commodity, but I think a crypto asset is actually, it rolls off the tongue better.
Mhm.
And I, and I'm of the opinion that we need to keep them separate in language, because then that way we're actually know what we're actually talking about, because they can't that's one of the beauties of cryptocurrency, or crypto, now you got me saying it, is crypto asset, is
Mhm.
that they are not controllable. The government cannot control these items. The government can make laws and say up is down and down is up and whatever, but they cannot control the laws of math. And that's what gives this the crypto asset its power, is that it's based on trust. And the trust is the trust in math. Math is it's like people say, well, Bitcoin it's not backed by anything. I know, say no, actually it's backed by the same thing that keeps up the building that we're in, because you cannot build a building without math.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you can take some sticks and throw them together, and you still, even if you're not measuring things, you can have to measure things with eyeballs to say, like, if you're going to build a lean-to or what have you, you would say, okay, I estimate that this stick is going to be long enough to go from the ground to my support beam. You're not using actual math, but you would be using your eyeball, which is going to compare. It's math is a way of comparing one thing to another. You have, okay, this thing is one, and then this is two. Well, then two of these things is long enough to reach from the ground to my stick goes across from two branches. So it's a precursor. It's not real math, but to build any building, to build anything, you need math. I mean, everything that's built is measured, and we have to be able to use math. Well, that's the foundation of our society, is what, building buildings, these manifestations of, instead of living in holes in the ground, caves, we build buildings because they're just more enjoyable than living in a cave. And there's not enough caves around for people to live in. So I like to, get away from the word cryptocurrency, even though we use that, it's like a term that we use, but it's not. It really, it can, and maybe it can be, but the rules of government will have to change in order for it to be that way. And other part of it is that the government doesn't tax its currency per se. Like they do tax it in sales tax, but like if you trade, the current IRS laws are that if you trade one crypto for another crypto, or you take your crypto and you buy something with it, you now have to pay a tax on whatever gain that you have. Whereas, the dollar doesn't ever gain, it only goes down, so you wouldn't tax it. But when it gains over the dollar, the de facto standard of the dollar or the yen or whatever, maybe not in other countries, but in the United States, if you have a trade of crypto, it's a taxable event.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be a currency.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's an asset.
It's an asset. It's an intangible asset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, like advertising is an asset. Or insurance is an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but the company that creates the asset, they can create as much of that asset as they want. As many times as you can go out and sell your insurance product, you can create that asset because there's an unlimited amount of it. But with at least Bitcoin, some of the other cryptos don't have a fixed supply, but Bitcoin, Ethereum doesn't have a fixed supply. Dogecoin doesn't have a fixed supply. It's an infinite supply of these tokens, and inevitably, I strongly feel that the fact that Bitcoin has a fixed number, 21 million, cannot ever be changed. That is what really drives the price of it over all the other ones. The other ones, a lot of them are, I don't want to say shit coins, but that's the term that we use, or Dogecoin is a joke coin, which was created on a joke, and then, oh my God, because he put some dog on it and people like dogs, a whole bunch of people bought it, and so that was this massive escalation of the value of that. But I think for long-term use, as a storage of value like gold, Bitcoin is the gold standard. It is the one that has the most value because it has the most mining power going behind it, and it also has that fixed supply.
Mm-hmm.
It's the gold standard.
Yeah, and now you're seeing major institutions starting to accept it. Yeah,
Strategy, Sailor. There's a few. Elon Musk has bought some, even though who knows what's going on with him, but he's kind of
right.
Talks out of both sides of his mouth at the same time. But he was putting his money where his mouth is.
Right.
And so I think that leads to a lot more. Even though we had $20,000 swing, it's going to lead to more price stability. And even though like Bitcoin has come down a considerable amounts in the last week or two, it's still holding solid. I mean, I know Peter Schiff is going crazy. He's just gloating in his boots about how everything is, things are improved. Oh my God, Bitcoin is terrible. Blah, 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 blah. He doesn't get it. I just don't. It's so surprising he doesn't get it.
Yeah,
he rails government.
I know. I was listening to one of his debates the other day with a pro Bitcoin guy versus him, and Peter just does. You're right. There's certain aspects. He's a smart guy, and he really understands a lot, but he just doesn't quite get what Bitcoin really is. I don't think. And I just what I love about it is that it gives us an alternative, and it weakens the power of the cabal. The cabal, when I use the word cabal, I'm talking about the people who control the money in this planet.
The board, the banks, organized religion, and government.
Yeah.
Those are bad guys.
Yeah. The board. Yeah. So I mean, they're the ones. And so if we can, and then they end up controlling the government, and they're controlling the people that run the government. And it just gives that group of people who are don't have the best interests of the people at all. They just have the best interests of themselves.
Right.
Their vision of a world that they have completely total control over, it weakens them because they can't control these cryptos.
Right.
So would you agree with that? Would you agree with that?
Well, it's like there's an escape. There's a steam release valve. If they go ahead and continue to inflate the monetary supply, people are going to go, I think I need to get in this Bitcoin stuff and watch my money, instead of going down in value, the value of my money goes up in value.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives people something to run to, because before it was a monopoly. They could do whatever they want, and if you don't like it, well, what's your alternative? You can't, you can't. Contrary to what Peter Schiff says, you can't trade in gold. It just doesn't work,
Right.
because you can't make change.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a gold coin, I can't go out and buy a car with it very easily.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or a cup of coffee is probably a better example. I mean, it's getting to the point where you can't really buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin either, but I think that it's kind of evolving into more of a storage of value than an actual unit of transaction. And I think some of the other cryptos are going to move into that space. Like if you want to use, buy a cup of coffee, you can go use Bitcoin Cash. It has a very low transaction fee. You just or use one of these. The also is a Lightning Network, where you can put some of your crypto on the Lightning Network node, and then if you want to go buy a cup of coffee, you can just transfer from Lightning Network to Lightning Network. That it confirms instantly, and the fee is pennies or parts of pennies.
Right.
So that's how I see things evolving. I mean, we're in this evolutionary stage, and how it's all, there's going to be a lot of tree pruning going on, and it's good. This is good for society. It allows for human innovation.
It's competition.
Right.
And competition is good. That's what makes the free market so beautiful, because when people are competing with each other and they can compete and that's what improves things.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, exactly. Competition. That's what makes you stronger. And,
right.
And it makes it so everyone prospers. So now we have something competing with the state. When I say the state, I'm talking about government, with the state money. So it makes them have to not devalue their currency.
Yeah, they have to play by
the rules, because they have competitors now.
Right.
Exactly. So that's a really good thing. That's a really good.
That we'll see how that all transforms. I mean, a lot of these central banks are talking about coming up with their own crypto. Let's have the USA dollar coin or whatever. I forget which ones they have, but there are coins that the government will probably inevitably come out with, and then they'll have to compete. Now, what they could probably end up doing is say, "Oh, we're going to have our crypto, and everybody else's crypto is going to be illegal." How all that's going to play out, I don't know. I can't imagine that people used to ask me, well, do you think that the government is behind Bitcoin or the NSA or whoever? And it's like, why? If you have a monopoly, if you have Walmart, and Walmart is the only store that you can go to, why would Walmart create a competition for itself?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It would. Yeah. There's no reason to do it.
No, and what you just said before is what's more likely to happen. What's more likely to happen is they'll try to make it illegal, but we should never, ever let them do that. There's no way, The
problem is that, let's say they made it illegal here in the United States. Well, then, but what's going to happen? Yeah, there would probably be a fall, a drop in price, I'm sure, or who knows what would actually happen. But let's say they did say, okay, all Bitcoin transactions are now punishable by 100 years in prison. Well, other countries can still use it. It'll once there's going to be a country sooner or later that's going to adopt Bitcoin, and once that happens, then things are going to get really interesting. Because now, let's say you had one country adopts it, and let's just say the United States just keeps it, and then another country adopts it, and then another. Well, what's going to happen is the value is going to go up. Now you have like these big institutional investors, countries that are going to say, hey, what do we got to lose? Our money supply sucks. we'd rather have our people have prosperity than, well, look at Venezuela, thousands and tens of thousands of percent interest or percent inflation.
Right.
And those people had the ability to invest in buying cryptocurrency or crypto assets. Yeah, I'm still doing it. Is that by them doing that, then they're not having to participate in the government inflating, devaluating their money.
Right.
So then now it improves their standard of living. So now they're not going backwards all the time.
Mm.
So this is a good thing for the third world countries to get involved with. What do they got to lose? I mean, they'll lose in some control, but in the end, he who gets in last is the one that's going to be there's going to be the worst, is going to be the biggest loser, so to speak.
That's a really good. That's a really good thought. In some country is going to be smart enough to do that.
Somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
The question of time.
Yeah.
Like a friend of mine, he said, good things take time and great things happen in an instant. But you have to have the asset first. If you don't have the asset at that time, then if, let's say, Zimbabwe decides to throw all of its, we're going to convert our currency over to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then what's going to happen is if you don't have that asset, it's going to skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be gigantic news.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be and then like, oh, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, mighta, oughta. I needed to get into it. So the thing is it's like you got to have the assets in order to be successful in life. In our social economic model, you have to have assets. You have to have houses. You have to have gold. You have to have food. You have to have things that, food doesn't really go up in value, but you have to have it in order to live. If you don't run out of food, well, then that's not a good thing. But if you have an asset like a house, they tend to go up in value. Well, you're not going to make money by working for a living. You have to have assets. That's what the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about, and this, that you got to have assets. You got to have your houses so that they go up in value, and then you take the value out or you collect the rents. Well, that's the same thing. You can't really collect rents on Bitcoin, but I think that they're coming up with mechanisms to be able to, take loans against your crypto, and then you get the loan, and then there's no tax on loans.
Right.
And so you can live off your interest of what the crypto, as long as it's going up. You can live off of that. And now that's how you get around having to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the thing is that people need to learn about this, right? What would you suggest that people do to learn about crypto?
Buy some. That's the, I don't know if you want to, my story is that
I would like you to tell your story. This is a great story.
Yeah. My story is that 2013, about 2012, somebody told me about Bitcoin, and my buddy, he told me, hey, I bought some Bitcoin. I'm going to send you some. I'm like, okay, here, do this on your computer, which I, did this on the computer, click here, download this. He sent me some Bitcoins. I forget even how much it was, to be honest with you. And it might have been even less than one, but back then they were $6. Okay.
Right.
But he didn't bother to explain it to me. He didn't bother to explain it to me. And then he didn't bother to charge me for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, click, 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 bam, bam, bam. He sends me the Bitcoins. Okay. It doesn't blink. It doesn't move. It doesn't do anything. I don't get it. It just like, there's a number there. Big deal. Now what? But and he didn't bother to explain it to me, and he didn't bother to charge me for it. So if you don't know what's the value of anything? Well, it's the value of what you assign to it. It's like, like I have gravel out here in front of my house. Well, that gravel, if you just took one of those pieces of gravel and threw it in the street, who cares? But in total, there's a value because someone had to collect all those particular gravel and put it on the ground. Well, it's the same thing with crypto. If no one charges you for it, well, it doesn't have what difference does it make? It has no value. It's like if you're a Martian, your spaceship crash lands on Earth, and now you by your foot there's a bag of diamonds. You kick the diamonds and go, I want to find a wrench. I'm looking for a wrench so I can fix this spaceship. Well, you don't know that those diamonds have value because maybe they don't have them on Mars. So this is the same thing with crypto, is that we didn't know it didn't have any value when up until May 22nd, 2010, when the first known trade occurred, which actually was just Bitcoin Pizza Day on last Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
There was no value for these things. And so people have to become aware of the value of these tokens. And the value comes from the fact that it solves a problem. All things that we have, it's like buying a drill. You don't buy you need a hole. You don't care about the drill, but you need the drill in order to make the hole. But the hole is the thing I want. The drill is the thing that costs money.
Yeah.
Are you tracking with me?
Yeah.
So anyway, so by having this technology that solves the problem of being able to be, you can send it to anyone, anywhere in the world. No one can stop it. It's non-censorable. You can't censor it. A transaction can happen instantly, and you can settle any debt instantly.
Mm-hmm.
We could have a contract, and you could build a website for me, and you could be in South Africa and I could be in China, and we could settle our agreement using crypto, even though we're on different monetary systems. It's almost like sign language. Mm-hmm. The symbol for chair is the same in one country as it is in another country.
Right.
So and that's how things are going. We're moving in a direction where we're going to have these standards that are universal. Mm-hmm. It's like the computers. They don't have time zones in computers. Why do we even have time zones? It's just ridiculous. But we still we're locked in this old model where we're still using time zones. Well, what happens if we just get rid of time zones and let's every place in the world will be on the same time as, let's say, London, all at the same time? It'll clear up. It's like, oh, what time? Like for you and me, we're on different time zones. Well, if we're all in the same time zone, it makes us a lot easier for us to synchronize ourselves to be able to say, okay, I'll see you at this time, London time. Mm-hmm. And why we're not using, I think eventually it's going to happen because these time zones just make things more complicated. And as we move into the future, I mean, if you look at humanity, we go from very hard to easier and easier and easier. It's like, if you had to live 10,000 years ago, how hard was it to live?
Yeah. They didn't even have a wheel, no wheel.
Now if you want to find a Starbucks, like, where is the nearest Starbucks? And the computer tells us where these things are. Right. So we're moving in a direction where things become, and that's one of the basis of one of my previous talks is we're now living in the age of Satoshi, mm-hmm. which is when the blockchain was officially started, and that actually occurred. I have a little timer here that tells me when it was, and I'm going to look it up because I forgot the date. But the age of Satoshi actually started 45,919 days ago. 22 hours, 46 minutes, and 32 seconds is when the age of Satoshi actually first came into being. Because mm-hmm. that's when the first Genesis block for Bitcoin actually was mined by Satoshi. It's time-stamped. And so we're now living in, we went from BC, which was the age of if you look at how we have transformed, the BC was the age of blood sacrifice. Mm-hmm. That's how religions honored their gods was with blood sacrifice. And then we moved into the AD era, which is marked by no blood sacrifice virtually anymore. I don't know if most spiritual paths advocate for blood sacrifice, but now we're in AS, which is now all possibilities are open to us. There is nothing that really cannot be done if someone takes all their energy and focuses is on what they want to do. I really do believe this, and that we are now open to all possibilities of humanity. We can now manifest whatever reality we want to enjoy in our lives.
It's putting us into a new dimension. It's like people talk about from third dimension to fourth or fifth dimension.
I honestly believe, and I mark that with the blockchain, because that is we went from the industrial revolution, when we're able to multiply our muscles with the use of energy, specifically steam power. I think actually you could say that the Gutenberg was actually the beginning of the industrial revolution, because now with books we could transport information over time, and so people could learn from each other how to improve their world. And we did this with, primarily we started with this, we had water power and animal power, water power, and then steam power. And then with steam power, we're able to create the things that we want to create, or the machines that we needed to create the things we wanted to create.
Right.
We had to create the machines in order to make those things first. And then created.
Right. So this means of exchange, this new means of exchange is what you're saying.
Is a way.
It's going to have multiple impacts on our lives, and that are very positive in many ways.
Right. And John David Garcia, who was Bob Podolsky's mentor, I read his book several times, Creative Transformation.
Creative Transformation,
He says that a machine is anything that increases in human intelligence.
Human creativity.
Basically.
Creativity, intelligence, right.
The machine increases intelligence, and intelligence is the ability to predict and control things in the three-dimensional world. Okay, so so things that increase our intelligence, these glasses increase my intelligence because it allows me to see things at the further distances, so I'm able to predict and control things in the real world. I could see a sign that I couldn't see without the glasses, so it allows me to predict and control. But also words and letters and numbers, these are machines that allow us to predict and control things in the three-dimensional world. Like, it goes back to math. We couldn't have the buildings we're sitting in unless we had math to be able to create them, which is a machine.
Right.
And what crypto assets are is a way of increasing our intelligence, because now we have this thing we trust, being math, and we are now able to trust it to be able to exchange value between each other. Well, before we had to use this system. Hang on one second here. My alarm was going off.
Okay.
Hang on, let me go back to you. So
there we go.
We had we have to create these machines now that are based on trust of math, that allow us to perform transactions where we can send each other these assets that we are now able to use as money, but it's not really money. It's still, it's not really money. It's close, but it can't be.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So bottom line, it's here to stay.
I think, of course, we don't know the future. Right. I believe it will. It's gonna be here. I mean, there is, it's not as tested. That's one of Peter Schiff's arguments, is gold has been around for 5,000 years and crypto has been around for 12. So we have, it's not as well tested, but I certainly believe that with the hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions. I mean, there's at one point I think the market cap for all crypto is about 2.3 trillion, which is about a little over 2% of the gross national product of all the countries of the world. That if it was going to be cracked, it would have been cracked by now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Someone there's interests out there that want to not see it succeed because obviously they lose their power, and so there are people I'm sure that or work away day and night to figure out a way to thwart the system.
Oh, I think that there are very powerful interests that want to end it, but I don't think they can now. I think it's already out of the bottle. The genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah, the genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah, and so
but going back to my story, I think I kind of got a little bit off.
No, I want him to hear your story.
Yeah, so basically my story is in 2013, someone, like I said, I found out about crypto, or Bitcoin specifically, because I think at that time maybe there was Litecoin available. I don't know what other ones were around, but someone told me about Bitcoin and explained it to me, and then I was really quite one-pointed about it. I said, I know exactly what I need to do, and I need to get some of these Bitcoins.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very clear at that time. I think what was explained to me was probably around $20, and then or somewhere around in that range. And then I inevitably purchased. The presentation was focused around mining Bitcoin because the guy who was
I think when you sold me my Bitcoin, which was the first Bitcoin I bought, if I'm correct, I think it was somewhere between 50 and 100, maybe something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was still pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he explained it, but he was coming from a mining perspective. And so I'm like, okay, I got $600. How do I build myself a miner? And I analyzed it 9 ways from Sunday and couldn't do it with $600. And then finally I go, well, you know what? If I can't buy this, if I can't make a miner, well, I might as well go buy some. Right. So got on local Bitcoins, which was how I, that was the one of the platforms. I think it's still around, but I got on local Bitcoins. I messaged one guy, no answer. Messaged the second guy, no answer. Third guy, no answer. Fourth guy, no answer. Finally, the fifth and last guy in the Phoenix area at the time, I messaged him, and he messaged me back, and we ended up connecting. We met at Denny's, and we talked for 2 hours, and then I ended up buying $600 worth at $38 with his markup. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to put my ad, and I'm thinking when I'm thinking when I'm in that Denny's, I go, I'm going to be a millionaire with this stuff.
Uh-huh.
Because all these other guys, I'm wanting to buy this stuff from you, and you can't even respond to me.
Right.
Obviously, they don't know anything about sales or.
Right.
And so then I put an ad on local Bitcoins, and then a few days later, somebody calls me and goes, "Hey, I want to buy some of those Bitcoins." I marked them up more than what I was paying for them, and I sold the Bitcoins. And I think I maybe sold some more Bitcoins, and then okay, now I got to go get some more. I got to resupply my Starbucks. It's a business model. It's like every business in the world. You got to buy, and then you sell, and then you buy and sell. You keep on doing it over and over again. And then when you get real successful, then you buy a franchise. Then you make a franchise, and then you start building these Starbucks stores. For another analogy is you just create a new entity.
So you became a dealer in Bitcoin. All right.
Yeah. And I basically applied 30 years worth of sales experience to selling this particular product, and I got to be really good at it. And I met a gentleman who I didn't have a lot of resources at the time, but he had lots of resources. He was into Bitcoin, actually my co-defendant for my case, and I would basically, hey, I have a guy who wants to buy or sell. We would figure out a spot price that I was buying and selling at. He would send me the Bitcoins or give me the cash, and I would go and roll the deal and come back and here's your money and here's my part, just like any other sales job,
Right.
it was like, this is what I've been doing my whole life. I've been in sales since almost my whole adult life.
Yeah.
And so I just applied how you do sales and anything to doing sales with this particular product.
Right.
And kept on doing that, And then my error was I went on local Bitcoins and said, well, I can do a $50,000 transaction. And so at some point in time, that got the attention of the IRS CID division, and then they came to me and said, "Okay, here, yeah, we have this money, but it comes from drugs." I'm like, I don't care. I'm not in the drug business. I mean, I knew better because I've heard of other people they've wanted to entrap using illegal methods, but I just chose to ignore it. And you know what? And then, of course, the way the feds work is they don't arrest you immediately. They have long investigations, and so they did one trade with me, and then they pull back, and then they'd send another guy, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm a friend of this guy, and by the way, this money comes from drugs." I'm like, what are these people, idiots? You're the stupidest drug dealer in the world. I mean, I don't know.
Telling you that? Yeah, you don't need to know that.
And I was, I quite frankly, I was stupid. I was pretty dumb because these are red flags.
Right.
And then so finally, after doing, I think we did. Well, there was 5 trades that they got me on, but there was 5 trades where they said, okay, this money comes from drugs. First they come at you and they say, oh yeah, I want to buy Bitcoins, and then they start dropping little hints like, oh yeah, I'm working with a company, I'm money's coming from South America or something. They drop little hints along the way, breadcrumbs to kind of lead you along the path. And then they oh yeah, we're actually putting heroin in motor blocks and sending it to Russia.
Right.
And so, and then inevitably they got me for $107,000 in a bag, trading Bitcoins, this guy, and there was no drugs there. But the thing is the money laundering laws don't require a mens rea. You'd have to break the law. All you have to do is that you to believe, or them to, by your words, show the jury that you believed that the money was coming from drugs, and bam, that's money laundering. And drugs are pretty ubiquitous in society, and quite frankly, I'm in my libertarian anarchist mindset, I don't believe in the drug war. I think it causes more harm than good, and of course, it's a way for them to destroy whatever freedoms that they tell you have. But okay, you have all these freedoms, but if there's drugs, oh, no more freedoms anymore, because we can do whatever we want.
So they got you for that, and tell about your sentence and then what happened.
They took it to trial. Of course, the feds, they don't offer bail very often. I'm very, very pleasantly surprised that Ian Freeman got off on bail. I think they said because it was they basically are doing the same thing with him as they did with me. Only I think he was doing it at a much higher level, and he's been doing it longer. So we'll see how. I hope he's successful in his trial. But they don't give bail to people in the feds. Like in every state, you can get bail for almost any crime except for murder. But in the feds, it's very, very difficult to get bail. And
Right.
So they denied me bail. And I went and spent 15 months in Florence. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, I was able to actually, hang on one second. I think I got it right here. Yeah. No, not there. No. Oh, man. Well, I thought I had it right in the tip of my, sorry, I thought I had it right there. But I was able to find a book called How to Transform Your Life. And by a gentleman named Guy Shigatsu. I'm actually reading another book by him right now. It's on, this one's called Modern Buddhism. But I was able to I found the book on Tibetan Buddhism, and I started reading it. And at that time, I'm in the jail, and they just seized from me 80 bitcoins, which at the time was worth about $107,000. And I had a guy I didn't even know, but he contacted my girlfriend, or Ernie Hancock, and he started communicating with me. And his name is Theo Chino. And Theo was keeping me up to date on what was going on with Bitcoin. And, the price of Bitcoin's going up and up and up and up. And I'm like going, oh my God, what did I do? Oh, 80 Bitcoins now worth 200,000. Now it's worth 300,000. Now it's worth 400,000. Now it's worth $1 million. I mean, it ramped all the way up to $20,000 in 2017. And I'm actually probably one of the first people in the world to ever become a millionaire while I was in prison, because those 80, well, really, I became a millionaire in prison.
Right.
But because the funds were seized, but they weren't forfeited at that time.
Okay. So what happened?
Well, but as a result of reading these books about Buddhism, I was able to readjust my thinking, and like, oh well, part of Buddhism is about learning how to not to be attached to our thoughts and our things, because everything's impermanent. And so I read the book 3 times, and then I found another book in there. It was called the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, I believe. And I read that about 3 or 4 times. It was all.
You mean the Tibetan Book of the Dead?
No, it's called the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, I believe.
Okay, all right.
And Sengye Rinpoche, I think was his name. I read that 3 or 4 times, and I read quite a few other books by, whatever books they had on Buddhism. I eventually became the librarian there at the
Prison.
whole facility.
Yeah.
And so I got the pick of the litter basically at that point in time, because basically they had the library as in the one corner of the jail, and they would have carts that they would load up with books, and they would wheel them down. There was like 5,000 people in the prison there, and they would wheel those. They'd load them up with books, and then they would distribute the books to those different pod areas where they had the groupings of incarcerated people. And so I got a job working. At first I was working, pushing the cart around, and then I was like, hey man, we need to refresh these books, because I've gone through all, they were exchanged these 100 books or whatever it was on the cart with everybody in there. They've all read them. Can I go to the library and get some, refresh this cart and get, I'd take, hey, what do you want? Oh, I want this guy. I want, they'd tell me the authors they wanted. And then I went to the main library. I kept on pestering the guards to let me, because you had to have an escort to go down there. It was all, like, oh my God, it's real big security, risk or whatever. They don't let people just wander around basically. But so I was able to go to the library, to the main library, and I'd pick all the books. Oh, you got 10 minutes. Oh, you got all these books, and they're all disorganized. I mean, like no organization. So I'd be pulling books down, and 10 minutes, pulling them out. Okay, now you got to go back, and I'd redistribute oh, hey, I got that book you were wanting.
Cool. So you were like a book dealer. You were the dealer.
Yeah. It's fun because that's one of the few pleasures that you have in there, is the ability to read. And then my friend Theo, he sent me a subscription to the New York Times, so I got a chance to read that every day. And then I would distribute that. Then I would like, okay, who wants to read the paper? So then I would distribute that. And then there was a CO there, and she didn't want me distributing in my newspaper anywhere outside of that, where the pod, the 50 people that I was in that group was. And she goes, oh, it's contraband. I go, no, it's a newspaper. And then she got mad at me, and then found some other reason to get me to lose my job as the librarian for the
man.
Yeah, but they're a lot of those people, they're in there, they enjoy their job. That's they get a pleasure value of being able to be sadistic to people and not have you have any way of doing anything to them.
Power.
It's
Power.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What a story. That's an incredible story. So the bottom line is you really, I think you're, from what I got from everything that you've said and you've told me before, is that this was a major positive life-changing experience for you.
Well, I turned it into one. I mean, you
Of
can
course.
yeah,
That
you
was
can
a
make,
choice you made.
yeah. One of the phrases in the book that the How to Transform Your Life was, a true spiritual seeker will use any circumstances to increase their spiritual awareness. There's not exactly like that, but there's
Yeah.
it's pretty close to that. And that was like in the very first paragraph. I'm like going, wow, that's pretty deep stuff there. And then, but basically, by learning about Tibetan Buddhism, I've learned that I have the ability to, whatever I believe. I mean, now in retrospect, my hatred for and loathing for the government and all its minions caused me to make the decisions that I did, and but so by correcting your thoughts, by learning how to not play into these delusions, because we all have delusions. A friend of mine, I'll give you a good example. A friend of mine, he's an anarchist friend of mine, and he recently passed away. And I called him up, and his girlfriend answered the phone, and she goes, "Oh yeah, Dan died. Dan Gould. He recently passed away. He just died the other day, just like 2 or 3 days earlier." And she said, "Well, he told me he was having chest pain, and he goes, I'm going to call the ambulance." "No, don't call the ambulance. If you call the ambulance, I'm going to hide in the bathroom." And so she didn't call the ambulance. He went to his bedroom. He had one more cigarette, and then he laid down and he died of a heart attack. And he blamed the medical industrial complex on his brother's death. So I'm sure that, I can't say for sure, but he had this super negative mental image of the medical business. And so even at being able to save his own life, he refused. I mean, whether or not he would have been saved or not, I don't know, but he
refused to even try.
He put the stake in his own heart, by not allowing this, the positives of the system to work in his benefit.
Right.
And I find that there's a lot of people that are in the anarchist movement that are so opposed to the system, myself previously included, that I just wanted to divorce myself completely from their entire system. And at that time, I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a bank account. I hadn't filed social income taxes for over 20 years. I just didn't participate. Just leave me alone. I just want to not be in your system. And I realize now that was delusional thinking. Mm-hmm. And by having this negative attitude towards the government and all its systems and all its minions, because I felt like they had damaged me, they deprived me of my choices, I didn't want to have anything to do with them as well. And that manifested, I think, inevitably with this situation where I said, hey, this money comes from drugs. And, a smarter man, so, someone who didn't have those inclinations would have said, no, I don't want that. No, you have drugs. In fact, they went to my co-defendant. The same guy went to my co-defendant and gave him the same ruse. Hey, I want to buy these Bitcoins. Yes, they come from drugs. And he said, no way. I'm not. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And he just shut it down.
Yeah, but that's all you would have had to do. That's all you would have had.
And that's the interesting thing is that everybody else there that I met, there was actually, except for one other guy, because they did something similar to another guy that I met. But like, if let's say you're a bank robber, the bank robber, he has to come up with the plan. He has to go buy the gun. He has to go get in his car. He has to drive to the bank. He has to present them with the note. And then, all those things have to lead up to being, committing the crime. Well, I didn't go to them. They came to me.
Yeah. No, it was entrapment.
All I would have had to do was say no. But there was another guy that I met in Safford that they did the same thing to him they did to me, only did with an airplane. They said, "Oh, we want to buy this airplane and we're going to use it for drug smuggling." He's like, "I don't care. Give me the money. I'll give you the airplane."
And they got him.
They got him 20 years.
Can you believe that the FBI would waste their time in people like that when all the drug trades and the sex trading and sex trafficking and everything? It just blows my mind.
It's low hanging fruit. It's low hanging fruit.
Low hanging fruit. It's easy for them to get. It's easy for them to make arrests and make their career, which is what their career is.
Just like driving down the road, you're going 20 miles over the speed limit, or 10 miles or 5 miles or whatever it is over the speed limit. Yeah. Hey, we're going to pull you over to, because you broke the law. Okay, yeah, but how many other laws were broken that if you had been not worrying about my interfacing with the air at the wrong rate, which you've been able to have successfully thwarted, or now, for example, you stole. Let's say I don't have any money, and now you stole $200 or $300 of my wages because I have to pay your ticket because I broke your law, whatever. Now I can't feed my family, so I can't feed my family. What I'll do is I'll go sell some drugs to make up for the $200 that you stole from me.
Right.
We know the society never thinks about how much what the unintended consequences are of these actions that we take, and we don't look at those things. It's like, oh yeah, you were bad, but what caused you to do the things you did? Those things are never looked at because society can't be held responsible for itself, and no one wants to look at it.
Right.
Where we live in a free country and we have the highest prison population in the world.
Oh, it's the numbers on that are amazing. The average, we're 8 times the average. We have 8 times as many people in jail per 100,000 population as the next closest country.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's off the charts of our incarceration. But we need to conclude with the main points here are, one, you, first of all, your situation, you were entrapped and it ended up being a positive experience. You made a choice to turn it into a positive experience, and it ended up being a very positive, life-changing experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, my life, I cannot even tell you, even with the loss of 80 Bitcoins, which, do the math on that, even at whatever number you want to use.
So I use 50,000. That's a nice round money. It's like what, 4 million?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So even with the loss of $4 million worth of that asset, I am still on the positive end of the spectrum.
By the way, where are those 80 Bitcoins?
Well, the government took them, and I don't know what they did with them.
Yeah. Well,
who knows what they sold them for, but that's part of what Buddhism is all about, is you can't take your money with you.
Right.
You have to work on yourself is way more valuable than, of course we want to have assets, we want to have things, we want to have, have beauty in our life, but in the end, everything will disappear when we die. And we're all headed for this inevitability of death. And how are you going to deal with your own death and to make your next life better?
Right. Well, that's an incredibly beautiful way to approach a very what most people would consider a disastrous experience in their life, and turn it into a positive. That's what evolution is all about. And if people can understand how to do that, then they can really make a huge difference in their lives. But let's leave
and insert it in.
Hang on, sorry, hang on.
This is nothing short of extraordinary. The programming language is.
I want to look for something this guy's talking here, but there's a statement here. I'll see if I can find it real quick. Is that every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Napoleon Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. Napoleon Hill is amazing. So tell us, if you just leave people with a message, what is the best way for them, for people to get into Bitcoin? What would you say?
Buy some. I mean, there's lots of. I mean, there's. I mean, face to face is my preferred method, because you get a teaching with it. You know, like
Right.
when part of my place in the space was, I would sell people Bitcoins, but I would teach them about it. You know, like when we were doing trade, it wasn't just like, here, give me the money and you see you later. No. When I would first meet someone, we're going to spend an hour together.
Right.
Before we do it, you know, at least 45 minutes, and then we'll do a trade, and then
Right.
we might wrap up or whatever. But I made it a part of it as a social thing, because, but
Right.
if you don't know anybody, then there's all kinds of ways to buy Bitcoins online through Binance or Bittrex or River or what have you. And you just got to buy some, because the thing is once you use Bitcoin, it solidifies it. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but once you do a trade, bam, like when we first did our first trade,
Right.
you gave money, something that was valuable to you. I built up the value of the product that I had. In order for anything to get sold, and you know this, that if anything needs, there's 4 things that have to happen. You have to want the product. You have to need the product. You have to understand the product, and you have to be able to afford the product. If all 4 of those conditions are met, bam, there's going to be a trade.
Right.
Well, why should somebody want the product? Well, they should want the product because our product goes up in value.
Right.
And they should need the product because the product that you have, these dollar bills, historically, they go down in value.
Yep.
So if you have an asset that goes down in value, what do you want to do? You want to trade it for something that goes up in value.
Exactly. It's that simple. It really is that simple, isn't it?
Right. And then by buying, you know, by talking to somebody and having them explain it at whatever level, then it makes it okay. I get it. I'm just trading this. You know, it's like people think, oh, I'm giving up this asset for this. Like you're buying a book. Well, this book, you could actually take the book and resell the book, and the book is worth more money than it was worth what you paid for it. It's worth more tomorrow in the future, because there's increasing the mechanism of Bitcoin, especially, is there's increasing scarcity in the future.
Right.
And that's what gives the value. But because the scarcity is that there's only a fixed amount of these tokens available, and that's what gives it the value that increases the value over time, because as people acquire this asset, and there's less of it in the future, and more people are getting into it, then the value has to go up. It's just an inevitability. It's the opposite of what the dollar is. The dollar, they can print as many as they want, but only a certain amount of people can really use dollars, because if you're not in the United States, you can't use dollars. So it has a fixed market. And so therefore, the value of it has to be devalued.
Yeah. Well, Morpheus, thank you so much for this. This has been a very, very inspiring and informative event and an interview. So I'm very, very happy you took your time to share with us today.
Pleasure to.
I know people that you know, don't know a lot about cryptocurrencies got a lot out of this, you know, and we got the extra bonus of hearing how you turned your life around when they entrapped you.
The thing is that in my mind, it's still the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm still, even with doing 30 months in the feds, I'm still of the same belief.
Yeah.
It has already changed the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Oh, good for you. You're going to have to write a book, buddy.
Oh, you think so?
I think you should. I really do. hey, Bob Podolsky's got a book. I got a book. You got to write a book. You know,
Okay.
you
All right,
got to
let's
have
get-
a book, and I'll write the introduction for you. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great day. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Go out and buy some Bitcoin, buy some cryptos. I have about 10 different coins now in my portfolio. And this guy is the one who put me onto it. And I've done very, very well. So, you know, it's just something that we want to support, I believe. And I think eventually it's just going to have, and I think it's already had a major impact on the world and increasing prosperity and increasing freedom. That's why I love it more than anything. Would you?
Right.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Thank you for joining us today, everyone.
All right. Have a great day.